Hello and welcome to Vantage this week, a show where we recap the highlights of the week gone by. The Russia-Ukraine war is intensifying. Russia has rained bombs on Ukraine. Ukrainian missiles have targeted more Russian towns. Meanwhile, Zelensky has unveiled a victory plan to initiate dialogue to end the war. In France, the police have arrested the CEO of Telegram, Pavel Durov, for hosting harmful content on the messaging app. In Bangladesh, trouble is mounting for Sheikh Hasina. There are at least 75 cases against her. The people are angry, and not just at Hasina, but also at New Delhi. And speaking of India, the Malayalam film industry is having a Me Too movement. More women are speaking up against abusers and against systemic exploitation. Cases are mounting against top actors and filmmakers, and the top body of the film industry has resigned. In Africa, a new race is underway with Russia, China and the US vying for influence. And amid these human troubles, the CEO of India's space agency says aliens exist. All this and more lined up. Let's get started.
Думаю, справедливо, якщо я цей план представлю спочатку президенту Сполучених Штатів. Слава Україні!
Командир президентского полка, полковник Сурайкин.
Здравствуйте, товарищи!
Ukraine has unveiled a victory plan, an ambitious but vague agenda to end the war. President Zelensky announced it on Tuesday. It came after 2 days of relentless attacks by Russia. Moscow fired hundreds of missiles and drones. They targeted around 20 Ukrainian cities. Soon afterwards, Zelensky unveiled his plan. He will share it with US President Joe Biden.
Думаю, справедливо, якщо я
It will be fair to present this plan to the U.S. president. The success of this plan depends on him. Whether we will get what is in this plan or not, whether we will have freedom to use the things prescribed by the plan or not. Since things are generally delayed in life, I think I will present this plan in September during the meeting with him. I think it will be the right thing to do to convey this plan to both Kamala Harris and Trump.
І думаю, що якимось чином буде правильно.
Zelensky will be traveling to the US in the month of September. He will address the United Nations General Assembly. During that trip, he will share his victory plan. Not just with Biden, but also Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Now, what exactly is this plan? Zelensky has outlined 4 stages. Number 1, the Kursk incursion. Ukraine has made inroads into Russian territory. They claim to control 100 settlements and 600 prisoners of war. So the first stage is leverage. The second stage is deciding Ukraine's place in the world security infrastructure. Well, those are Zelensky's words. But what do they mean? Maybe security guarantees from the West, or a promise of neutrality, or even a NATO membership. We don't know. It is vague by design. The third stage is forcing Russia to end the war diplomatically. And this is very important. After the invasion, Zelensky talked about defeating Russia. He said, give me the weapons and I'll beat Putin. But now he says, end the war diplomatically. Again, no specifics, which brings us to the final stage. That is the economic package. I'm guessing this means rebuilding after the war or joining the European Union market. Now, Zelensky's statements made a couple of things quite clear. A, this won't be possible without US support. And B, it could take a while. Why else would he brief both Kamala Harris and Donald Trump? But let's assume that they're on board. Will it be enough for the plan to succeed if the Americans are on board? Russia has already rejected the plan. They say the war will continue. But there is one good thing about this plan, an acceptance that talks are the only way out. Zelensky was pretty clear about it.
І якщо вони знають хоч щось про наші дії,
We must, on our platform at the Peace Summit, be in powerful position, strong position. Of course, it will be over in the way of dialogue, but we must have strong position in the dialogue.
на нашій платформі, на саміті миру, бути в потужній ситуації.
So Zelensky is betting on dialogue. But to succeed at the negotiating table, you need leverage. Does Kiev have that? They claim to control around 1,300 square kilometers of Russian territory. Now, to give you some context, Russia's total size is 17 million square kilometers. Kiev controls 1,300. So it controls 0.007% of Russia. But Russia controls nearly 18% of Ukraine. Now, I'm not a negotiating expert, but those do not look like good numbers. So Kursk alone cannot help Ukraine. They need to do better, and for that, they will need Western help. Zelensky is asking for long-range cruise missiles. He wants to hit deep inside Russia. But Moscow has warned against it. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov issued a threat yesterday.
This is blackmail. This is an attempt to pretend that the West wants to avoid excessive escalation, but in reality it is deceit. The West does not want to avoid escalation. The West, as they say, is asking for it. We have our own doctrine, including the doctrine of using nuclear weapons, which, by the way, is now being clarified and which American officials know very well.
This is why the West is wary. They don't mind attacks inside Russia, but they don't want their weapons involved. So what is Zelensky doing about that? He's building his own long-range missiles. It's called Palyanitsia. The word itself refers to a type of Ukrainian bread. Apparently, the Russians have a hard time pronouncing it. This weapon is homegrown. It's a combination of a missile and a drone, and it can strike deep inside Russia. But the exact range is not clear yet. If deployed, it could strengthen Kiev's hand, maybe put Russia under more pressure. But still, there is no guarantee of success, because Russia is a nuclear power and Ukraine is not. No incursion or missile can bridge that gulf, meaning Moscow will always have the upper hand in talks. Zelensky is simply not willing to accept that. It's good that he's focusing on dialogue, but that dialogue must be rooted in battleground realities. If not, it will be a repeat of what we saw in Switzerland, a peace summit with no peace. It's just another Saturday. It was just another Saturday for Pavel Durov. That's the Telegram CEO. He was on his private jet traveling from Baku, set to land near Paris. So it seemed business as usual. But the moment he landed, there was a plot twist. Durov was detained. The police arrested him, and currently he is in French custody. President Emmanuel Macron says there is no political motive here, that his government is not involved. Now, Durov can be held for 96 hours, that is 4 days. After that, two things can happen. Either he'll be charged or he'll be released. We don't know what it will be. But here's what we do know about his arrest. It is linked to Telegram, the messaging app that he co-founded. So who is Pavel Durov? Why is he called the Russian Zuckerberg? What is Telegram and how is it linked to his arrest? Let's look at Durov first. He's 39 years old, born in Russia in the city of St. Petersburg. In the year 2006, his life changed. He was a college student then. Facebook had just launched and it was all the rage. So Durov was inspired. He wanted to replicate it in Russia, and that very year he launched something called Kontakte or VK. It looked exactly like Facebook, and it turned out to be a game changer. VK was extremely popular in Russia. It grew to a $3 billion company, and it earned Durov a moniker, the Mark Zuckerberg of Russia. That's what he was called. But Durov was nothing like Zuckerberg. He was mysterious, often mercurial. He was known for weird stunts. In 2012, he showered money on people on the streets from VK's headquarters. As his profile grew, he also ran into trouble. In 2011, he found Russian police outside his apartment. They wanted him to shut down the account of Alexei Navalny. Navalny, you would remember, was a Putin critic, also a popular opposition leader in Russia. Moscow wanted to silence him. Durov refused to shut his account. Now, this was a bold move. It pitted him against the Russian government. Then in 2014, Russia annexed Crimea. Moscow asked Durov for the personal data of Ukrainian leaders on VK. Again, Durov refused. But he could not withstand the pressure, so he sold the company and left Russia. At that time, Durov had around $300 million in his account. He decided to build something new, and he developed Telegram. He did it while traveling from one country to another. In 2013, Telegram was launched quietly with no fanfare, after which Durov settled in Dubai. By the way, he has French citizenship. It's not clear how he got it, but that's what he has. Of course, Telegram did not go down well with Russia, so initially Moscow tried to ban the app. Soon they gave up on it. What's even more interesting is that Moscow still considers Durov a citizen, and it's slamming his arrest.
The arrest of Pavel Durov means that there is no freedom of speech, that the freedom of speech in Europe is dead. Elon Musk is free, Mark Zuckerberg is free, but Pavel Durov is now in prison. Why? Because he's Russian. He's a Russian by nationality and he's Russian by his citizenship. So he has been traced as a person to be a scapegoat for the West as an evil Russian.
Now, Durov is worth around $15.5 billion. And like most billionaires, he has his eccentricities. He wears all black, he leads a solitary life, he quotes from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and he boasts of his sperm donations. What he cares about most, apparently, is privacy and freedom of speech, and it shows in his creation, Telegram, the messaging app. It's quite similar to WhatsApp. It has around 950 million users. So it is one of the biggest social media platforms out there, 950 million users. And what makes Telegram so attractive? It's the same privacy. Durov calls it a free platform. He refuses to moderate the messages. Telegram also does not share data. It does not hand it out to governments. It does not sell it to other companies. The other unique thing about this is group sizes. Take WhatsApp, for example. It limits groups to 1,000 people. But in Telegram, it can go up to 200,000 people, 200,000 people in one group. It's useful for things like independent news channels or pro-democracy groups to disseminate information. But it also makes it a cesspool for misinformation, neo-Nazi groups, child trafficking content, drug trafficking, and terror-related content. And all of this has made Telegram a target in the past as well. In 2018, Iran tried to ban it. So did Russia. Spain accused it of intellectual property violation. In 2023, Brazil blocked it briefly. So it's been in the crosshairs of governments for a while, and now France has made its case. Authorities in France have accused Telegram of failing to moderate content and not cooperating with authorities. So France's argument is quite simple. There is harmful content on Telegram. The platform is not moderating it. So let's arrest the CEO. And what is Telegram saying? It says Durov has nothing to hide. He is a regular in Europe. He is a French citizen. The platform abides by EU laws, so they don't understand what this arrest is about. And they may have a point. Such an arrest is unprecedented because it boils down to one argument, the one that big tech loves to use. Can a platform be held responsible for what its users do? Telegram says no, but clearly France does not agree. Trouble is mounting for Sheikh Hasina. She's turning into the Imran Khan of Bangladesh. Imran Khan has around 150 cases against him. Sheikh Hasina now has 75. Frankly, it's getting hard to keep track because a new case is filed almost every day against her and the charges vary. 63 of them are murder charges, a crime that carries the death penalty in Bangladesh. 7 cases are linked to crimes against humanity and 3 are linked to abduction. Of course, Hasina is in India right now, so she's beyond the reach of Bangladeshi authorities. The interim government has talked about extraditing her. So have the main political parties and groups like the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, the Jatiya Party and the Jamaat-e-Islami. All of them want India to extradite Sheikh Hasina, but no official request has been made so far. Meanwhile, the public sentiment is turning against New Delhi. The first trigger was Hasina herself. Her stay in India has ruffled some feathers in Dhaka. The second reason is the floods. Heavy rainfall battered northeast India and Bangladesh in recent days. Around 11 districts in Bangladesh were flooded. More than 1 million people were affected. many Bangladeshis blame India for it. They say India opened a dam upstream which led to a sudden rush of water into Bangladesh. They say it was retaliation for Hasina's ouster. Now, India has rejected this claim. Multiple fact-checkers have backed India's position. If anyone is to blame, it is nature or maybe climate change. But such is the political climate in Bangladesh, the anti-India rhetoric is clouding public opinion. People are angry and confused, and they need someone to blame. But what is the interim government doing about it? Have they tried to cool the tensions? Well, quite the opposite. Let's focus on two recent moves by Dhaka. Number one, they have released the chief of a Bangladeshi terror group. It's called ATB, or Ansarullah Bangla Team. Now, this is a group linked to the Al-Qaeda. Their chief is Jaishimuddin Rahmani. And he was in jail for abetting a blogger's murder, but the caretaker regime has released him. Now, the ATB is a headache for India as well. Reports say they have designs on India's northeast. In fact, 2 ATB terrorists were arrested in Assam this year. Sheikh Hasina did not tolerate such groups. She cracked down on them, but clearly the new regime has different ideas. Which brings us to the second move. Dhaka has lifted the ban on the Jamaat-e-Islami. We've talked about this group before. The Jamaat is a radical Islamist group. They have ties to the Pakistani deep state. They also opposed Bangladesh's liberation in 1971. In fact, the Jamaat collaborated with Pakistan. They helped Islamabad slaughter Bengalis. Again, Sheikh Hasina cracked down on them. She banned the Jamaat after the recent protests. But Dhaka has lifted the ban. The strategy here is quite clear. The public sentiment is anti-India, so the interim regime is tapping into it. They're actively courting India's rivals. Just look at this report. Bangladesh is buying military supplies from Pakistan, around 40,000 rounds of ammunition and 2,900 high-intensity projectiles. Now, such orders are not unprecedented, but the scale definitely is. Last year, Bangladesh bought 12,000 rounds from Pakistan. This year, they're buying 40,000. It may sound like a good strategy in the short term, but it's a race to the bottom. Because India and Bangladesh need each other. We share more than 4,000 kilometers of border. We also share 54 rivers between the two countries. Total bilateral trade is $14 billion. India is Dhaka's second biggest trading partner in Asia. And don't forget, people-to-people ties. Around 1.6 million Bangladeshis visited India in 2023. A lot of that is medical tourism. They come here for treatment and medical care. This is a relationship that goes back centuries. It is bound by culture, language, geography, and trade. You can't ignore it for politics. Yes, the public opinion is unfavorable, but Bangladeshi leaders are not doing anything to fix it. They're milking the rhetoric for popularity. It may work for them in the short term. It may even get some of these anti-India leaders elected, like we saw in the Maldives. But in the long term, both countries need each other. India realizes and accepts this. Bangladesh should too. Witch hunt. It's a word we've all heard. Today it means a campaign against someone who does not conform. Someone being persecuted with little or no evidence. But where did the word come from? Well, it's from medieval Europe. It refers to a historical persecution of people, those accused of witchcraft. Most of them were women. These hunts were marked by hysteria, unfair trials, and of course, false accusations. Women were executed, even burnt. Now, modern society may not burn women at the stake, but it's found other ways. Take the Malayalam film industry, for example. It's also called Mollywood. For years, powerful men here have abused women. They have exploited them. They have muffled their voices. But now these men are facing the music. Today, a rape case was filed against a man called Mukesh. He is a Malayalam actor, also a politician in the state. He is the CPIM MLA from Kollam. He's been accused of rape by an actress. She says she was threatened after she complained. And that has forced her to relocate to the neighboring state of Tamil Nadu. She's gone to Chennai. Of course, Mukesh has denied the reports. He says it's all politically motivated. But he's not the only one here. Many top actors are now being implicated. Take Dilip, for example. We told you about him yesterday. In 2017, he paid a group of men to assault a top actress. He wanted her silenced. And that led to an uproar across the state. It led to the formation of the Hema committee. So Dilip was the center of it all. He was the prime accused in the case, yet look at what local media reports say. Dilip was the kingpin of Mollywood's power group. We've talked about this group before. It consists of 10 to 15 men. They call the shots in the industry, and turns out that Dilip was the one who headed it. He controlled film organizations. He controlled distribution. He got actors replaced. He even got a few banned from the industry, so Dilip was truly powerful. For example, look at the AMMA. That's the Association of Malayalam Movie Artists. It's a top industry body. Dilip used to be a part of it. He was expelled after the 2017 assault, but just a year later, he was reinstated. And the AMMA defended the move. Imagine that, a top body defending a sexual assault accused. Their executive committee was dissolved. The entire team stepped down, including President Mohanlal. But critics say this is escapism. And leading that charge, the criticism, is the WCC, the Women in Cinema Collective, WCC. After the 2017 assault, women in Mollywood were appalled, and some of them came together and formed this group called the WCC, and they really made a difference. In 2017, they submitted a petition to the Kerala Chief Minister. They demanded an inquiry into the assault. They kept pushing for it. In the end, the government relented, and that is when they formed a 3-member committee led by Justice Hema, the Hema Committee. And this is what led to the Hema Committee report. It exposed the exploitation in Mollywood. It led to the current Me Too movement. So the WCC deserves all the credit, but it hasn't been an easy journey for them. They have faced many witch hunts. I'll give you an example. In 2018, the AMMA staged a skit. It included top stars like Mohanlal and Mammootty. It was a cringe fest. Misogynistic jokes, dancing girls, women as arm candies, it had all of it. This skit was a real dig at the WCC. It ridiculed their so-called sudden rebellion. Now, this is an industry known for progressive cinema, for themes that empower women. Yet their top actors and directors are staging a skit just to hit out at a women's collective. And that's not all. The WCC and its members have faced intense trolling. Fans of male stars have abused them. They've been ridiculed. Many of these women lost out on roles. Some faced legal battles. Some had to leave the industry altogether. The modern witch hunt does not need a mob with torches. It has the court of public opinion, and for years it was against the WCC. Yet they persevered, and it's because of them that the rotten Mollywood stands exposed today. While we must praise these women, it's also time to ask the men some questions. The AMMA may have stepped down, but they still have questions to answer. Why did they protect the abusers? Why did they ridicule female actors? Why did they lash out at the WCC? Mollywood needs these answers if it aims to right its many wrongs. The heat is on the RG Kar Medical College. A leaked audio call confirms an earlier suspicion that the college may have tried to cover up the murder, that they passed it off as suicide. There were 3 calls in total. All of them were allegedly made to the victim's father. By whom? An assistant superintendent at the hospital. In the first call, the father was informed that his daughter was in hospital. No further details. In the second call, he was told that she was critical. And in the third, she was told that it could be a suicide. And when did these calls happen? The first one was at around 10:50 a.m., so the morning of the murder. Listen in.
মেয়েকে আমরা এমার্জেন্সিতে নিয়ে এসেছি, আপনারা আসুন, এসে যোগাযোগ করুন। ওনার অবস্থা খুবই খারাপ, আপনি যতটা তাড়াতাড়ি পারবেন চলে আসুন। উনি সুসাইড করেছেন হয়তো, বা কিছু মারা গেছেন। পুলিশ রয়েছে, আমরা হসপিটালে সবার সামনেই রয়েছি, ফোন করছি, আপনারা যতটা তাড়াতাড়ি পারবেন চলে আসুন।
Now, just to be clear, we cannot confirm the authenticity of these clips. The father himself is not sure. He doesn't know where these clips came from. And what about the Kolkata police? Well, they say we never described the death as a suicide. Yet questions remain because the CBI did talk about the suicide claim. They said that the family had been misled about the death. The only question is, by whom? This audio suggests it was the college. Meanwhile, the political blame game is gathering speed. Chief Minister Mamata Banerji has written to Prime Minister Modi. This is her second letter in 2 weeks. She is asking the central government to introduce tougher laws. That's what Mamata Banerji wants. The centre should introduce tougher laws. Her position is that the centre is not serious about rape. Of course, New Delhi has rejected this. A union minister had replied to Mamata Banerji's first letter. She posed some tough questions to the West Bengal chief minister, like why are 11 fast-track courts yet to be set up in the state? Why is there a backlog of 48,000 rape and POCSO cases? The chief minister did try to defend her record, but let's face it, this is all for political mileage. Mamata Banerji plans to introduce a new bill on Monday, an anti-rape bill. It mandates capital punishment for rape. Look at how one official described it. Every culprit of rape, if found guilty, will be hanged. Now, this is a serious discussion because the jury is still out on death penalty for rapes. One group says it's necessary, that such a punishment will deter rapes. The other group says it is counterproductive. You see, a lot of rapists are convicted based on the survivor's testimony. So attackers may not stop at rape. They may murder the victims to destroy evidence. So my point here is simple. We are talking about a very complicated issue. It needs systemic solutions, solutions that start at home, continue in school, get enforced at the workplace, and are protected by the law. What we don't need is political grandstanding. Unfortunately, it's happening on both sides. The ruling TMC party held a protest rally today. So did the opposition BJP. BJP leaders marched to the State Women's Commission office. They tried to lock the gates in a symbolic protest. If you see this political discourse, it is pure hypocrisy. Rapes happen in every single Indian state. If you rule that state, you remain silent. If it happens elsewhere, you discover your voice. The same thing is happening here. The TMC is asking, what about the rapes in Uttar Pradesh or in Haryana or in Rajasthan, which is a fair question. But why are you raising it now? Because there has been a rape and murder in your own state. I'm afraid this politics must change. Parties need to realize that women's safety is a national issue, not a political football, not a topic for blame game. It is a national issue. Unless that happens, we won't see meaningful change. Our next story is about Africa and a battle taking place over the continent, a shadowy battle for influence. Now, as most of you know, Africa suffered under European colonization. It was known as the Scramble for Africa. The continent was carved up by Western powers and mercilessly exploited. Even today, the scars of that colonization are very visible. But before the old wounds could fully heal, a new scramble has already begun. The key players are Russia, China and the US. They're not looking to colonize Africa this time. What they are doing is expanding their influence by offering economic assistance. It's an old trick. Come in with promises of aid and then stick around for the resources. The entire African continent has seen this before, but they clearly haven't learned from history. This week, the US sealed 2 deals in 2 different corners of the continent, Tanzania in the east and Ghana in the west. Let's start by looking at Tanzania. It is in East Africa. The largest city there is Dar es Salaam. It is home to the nation's largest port. In fact, it is Africa's 4th largest port on the Indian Ocean side, making it extremely important for trade. And the US wants to take advantage of this, so it has offered to pay $250 million to develop a railway line through Tanzania. Now, $250 million is no joke. So why is the US being so generous? 2 reasons. First, it will help American trade via the Lobito corridor. Lobito is a port city on the other side of Africa in Angola. The US is developing a port there too and creating a rail corridor that begins there. This railway line will pass through 4 African nations: Angola, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Zambia, and then finally Tanzania. The corridor will cut through the entire African continent, connecting the Atlantic and the Indian Oceans. And that's not all. It will also link ports with mines, the ports of Lobito and Dar es Salaam, with mines in the DRC and Zambia. Now, when you join the dots, what do you see? A grand plan to exploit Africa's mineral wealth. This is America's plan. And Tanzania was the last part of the puzzle, hence the $250 million investment. This is the first reason. The second reason is the scramble for influence in Africa. And here the US is competing with China. China already has a strong presence in the region. It has multiple mines in Zambia. It is also investing in railway stations and renovations. So the US is basically playing catch up. And with this latest move, Washington will be hoping to one-up Beijing. How will China respond? Well, it already has. You see, for years, China was pouring money all over Africa, approving loans worth over $10 billion every year. But those loans dried up. They were on the decline since 2016. But recently, that trend has changed. A new study is out. It says last year, China increased its lending to Africa. It is definitely wary about losing influence. Meanwhile, the US is doubling down on its Africa plans. I mentioned their second victory in Ghana. Look at this press release from the US State Department. It announces a landmark commercial agreement with Ghana for a small nuclear reactor project. Now, Ghana has been trying to get a nuclear reactor for a while now, and it has been weighing up offers from 5 countries: China, South Korea, France, Russia, and the US. Companies from these 5 countries were bidding for the contract. Now, it seems the American company has won. The agreement was signed yesterday. This is a major win for the US. It has been lagging behind in the African nuclear race. It's been losing out to Russia in a number of countries. At one point, Moscow looked unbeatable in Africa, but now Washington has pulled off an upset. Russia and China won't take this lying down, though. Beijing is already handing out more loans. Moscow may take similar actions. The only thing we can say for sure is that the new scramble for Africa is on. Our next story is about education. Every year, more than 1 million people from India head abroad for higher education. They go to colleges in countries like the US, the UK, Canada, and Australia. Indians are among the most common foreign students in these countries, followed by students from China, South Korea, and Saudi Arabia. But now some countries are trying to cut down on international students. Australia is the latest.
About 10% more international students in our universities today than before the pandemic, and about 50% more in our private vocational and training providers. Today I can announce that, subject to the bill passing, the overall number of international students starting a course next year will be set at 270,000. This includes higher education courses and vocational education and training courses.
Australia has put a cap on international students. In 2025, Only 270,000 international students will be allowed into the country. 270,000 students. Each type of education institution will get a separate quota. Public universities will be allowed to take 145,000 students. Private universities can bring in 30,000 students, and vocational education institutions will get 95,000. Each individual college and training institute will have its own limit. Places like Melbourne University and Sydney University have been given their caps. They are currently studying the impact of these limits. Perhaps they will take a look at Canada for insights, because Canada also put a limit on student enrollments this year. The limit was announced in January. Canada decreased study permits for international students by 35%. It also seemed to be targeting the foreign students. It seems a bit strange. After all, why would you want to kill a golden goose? Foreign students bring in billions of dollars. They pay higher tuition fee, meaning they subsidize the education of locals. Look at Australia's case. Education is the country's fourth largest export. Foreign students brought in almost $25 billion in 2022-23, $25 billion. So then why would Canberra try and limit this? Why would Ottawa? Well, the simple answer is politics. Both Australia and Canada face a housing crisis. Rents are through the roof. The Australian property prices are up 40% since the pandemic, and the locals blame migrants for this. Both Australia and Canada encouraged immigration after the pandemic, so the locals feel that migrants are leading to rising rents. This has led to an anti-migrant sentiment in these countries, and the governments cannot ignore this. Both Australia and Canada have elections next year. The ruling parties want to stay in power, so to make the locals happy, they're targeting migrants, specifically international students. So if you're someone who wants to study abroad, how should you interpret all this? Well, foreigners, even international students, are soft targets. Most governments face housing problems because of their own incompetence. But they'll never admit to that. So they'll find any scapegoat they can. It's students right now, but the scope will widen. In Canada, they've already expanded the net. They're restricting temporary foreign workers as well. Australia may follow suit. And this might impact job prospects after college. So even if you get a study permit, it could still be an uphill battle. Most international students go abroad for better economic opportunities. They spend exorbitant sums of money in the hopes of securing a better life. But it has always been a gamble, and they've always been at the mercy of their host countries. That part has not changed. It was always a struggle, and it seems to have become a little bit harder now. But that's unlikely to deter the millions seeking a life abroad. There are aliens out there, and we aren't the ones saying this. It's the ISRO chief this time. ISRO stands for Indian Space Research Organisation. This is India's national space agency. Its chairman is S. Somanath. He recently went on a podcast. He was asked if alien life exists and if it has visited our planet. And to this, Somanath said, absolutely, no doubt. Those were his words. Absolutely, no doubt. He added that while he has no proof, his conscience says so. That there are aliens out there in the universe, and if they are technologically advanced, they have definitely visited us. Now, this, of course, is all conjecture, but coming from the ISRO chief, it is making headlines. However, Somanath is not the only one who believes this. Just last year, a former Pentagon official made similar claims. He went on record. He said that aliens have visited Earth. He also blamed the US government for keeping this a secret. He said that the US stores crashed UFOs and dead aliens. And this was an explosive accusation, but it was quashed by the Pentagon this year. Soon after, Harvard researchers came out with a study, and they made claims more suited to Hollywood movies. They said that aliens are an advanced species. They hide in a secret base on Earth and live among us without us knowing about it. So the hypotheses and allegations are plenty, but the big question still remains, do aliens exist? Well, here's what science says. No life beyond Earth has ever been found. There is no evidence of alien life, and aliens have never visited our planet. But just because extraterrestrial life has never been discovered doesn't mean it does not exist. Our galaxy is huge. We've only studied a fraction of it, a very small fraction. And so far, things look promising. There is an underwater ocean on Mars. It has raised hopes of life on the planet. There are icy moons in the outer solar system, like Saturn and Jupiter's moons. They could have oceans as well, which could be habitable. These are all recent discoveries, and they're a step forward, but we have barely scratched the surface. And let me tell you why. These discoveries come from our solar system. Let's put this in perspective. Our solar system is one of many. Our galaxy, the Milky Way, has more than 3,200 other solar systems. And there are about 2 trillion galaxies. So there are trillions of stars, moons, and planets out there. With so much turf, it is hard to run the math. But this is what common logic says. Our universe is 13.8 billion years old, and what happened on the Earth over millions of years could have happened anywhere else. So life could exist anywhere. As the saying goes, the universe is a pretty big place. If it's just us, it seems like an awful waste of space. So the possibilities are endless, and Earthlings are obsessed with these possibilities. We have made movies, written books, curated memes, and dressed up as aliens for school plays. Our pilots say they've seen otherworldly things. Our governments have established new departments for aliens. They've held hearings about fake alien mummies. And when things get boring, we get into nomenclature. We've revamped UFOs as UAPs, unidentified anomalous phenomena. So whether aliens exist or not, at this point, the alien mania is more a cultural obsession than an astrological one. It keeps us hopeful. We continue to gaze at the heavens, looking for 10 feet tall, green, walking, talking beings. Because who knows, maybe someday our fascination will bear fruit. After all, the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. Are you a Telegram user in India? If you are, these are worrying times. The app's founder has been arrested in France. But Telegram is facing trouble in India too. The central government is investigating the app for extortion and gambling. So the worry is the app, Telegram, could get banned in India. Now, the Telegram community in India is quite small, around 5 million users in total, which is nothing compared to Instagram or X. Instagram has more than 300 million Indian users, X has around 30 million, but the tiny Telegram community has a dark side. A lot of shady stuff happens there, like sharing pirated movies or betting on sports events. So the news of a possible ban has hit them hard. And how did they react? By making jokes on another social media platform.
छोटी थोड़ा किसको जगह करो। क्यों? नट्टू काका भी आएंगे अभी अंदर।
कसूर क्या हो गया बता दो तो।
Across continents, one powerful news source.
Bringing you diverse perspectives on the issues that matter.
We go beyond the boundaries to give you that little extra about every sporting moment.
So thank you for making Firstpost 5 million strong. We're counting on your support, and you can trust us to bring you the news unfiltered and unvarnished.
Climate change is on our doorstep. It's time for a revolution to take root. And it starts with 1.4 billion Indians. It starts with one tree. One tree for humanity. One tree for Mother Earth. One tree for our future. Project One Tree, a News 18 network initiative.